The AGT stage glowed in its usual brilliance, cool blue lights shimmering on polished floors, audience members buzzing with expectation, judges preparing for what they assumed would be another ordinary audition. But the moment the host announced the next performer, the atmosphere subtly shifted. From the Philippines, a man who says he brings back the legend of Elvis Presley. Whispers rippled across the audience, half excitement, half skepticism. Onto the stage walked Rico R.K. Navarro, a soft-spoken man in a simple white shirt and black pants. He didn't look like an impersonator, nor did he try to. No flashy jumpsuit. No styled pompadour. Just a humble presence and a quiet smile. "Hello, sir," he said, bowing slightly to the judges. His accent was gentle, respectful. "I grew up listening to Elvis because of my father. His music, it raised me." Simon Cowell leaned back, politely indifferent at first. Heidi and Sophia smiled warmly, though clearly expecting a tribute performance like many they'd seen. But everything changed the instant Rico sang his first line. A warm, velvety note floated across the room, so eerily familiar that audience members physically jolted. Some gasped, others clutched their chest in disbelief. It wasn't mimicry. It was authenticity, depth, soul, like the microphone had become a time portal, and the true voice of Elvis had returned for a moment in history. Simon instantly stiffened. His face hardened from casual to deeply focused. Within seconds, he raised his hand sharply. "Stop. Stop the music." The room froze. Camera operators looked at each other. Rico blinked, confused, unsure if he had made a mistake. Simon stood slowly. "That sounded exactly like Elvis Presley. Start again. No track. Just your voice." The audience roared in excitement. Rico swallowed hard. This wasn't a mistake. This was his moment. The moment Simon asked for an a cappella performance, the energy in the theater shifted. The background music faded into nothingness, leaving only the hum of anticipation. Rico stood frozen for a second, gripping the mic with trembling hands. He had spent years singing in bars, festivals, and family gatherings back home in Cebu, but never had anyone stopped him mid-performance because they believed he sounded too good. He inhaled slowly, eyes scanning the vast arena. Thousands of faces stared back at him, curious, hopeful, hungry for magic. He lowered his gaze, whispered a silent prayer for his father who had passed away years earlier, and lifted the mic back to his lips. Then he sang. Without instruments, without reverb, without the comfort of a track, Rico's voice became pure, raw, and unfiltered. The richness of his tone filled every inch of the AGT stage. His a cappella rendition of "Can't Help Falling in Love" was hauntingly intimate. Every note carried a warmth that wasn't rehearsed but lived, earned through pain, joy, and years of singing for people who never thought he'd make it this far. Heidi's jaw dropped. Sophia softly covered her mouth. Howie was stunned silent. Even the usually unshakable Simon leaned forward as if afraid to miss a single breath. As Rico continued, something unexpected happened. The audience began standing, row by row, as if lifted by the same invisible force that flowed from his voice. Not cheering. Not shouting. Just silently rising in respect, in awe. By the final line, Rico's eyes glistened. He ended with a soft vibrato that hung in the air like a final goodbye. Silence followed. A deep, emotional silence. Then the theater exploded into applause, one of the loudest of the season. Simon shook his head slowly, almost in disbelief. "You didn't bring back Elvis," he said. "You brought back something even rarer, sincerity." The applause thundered through the hall, echoing so loudly that Rico felt the stage vibrate beneath his feet. He lowered the microphone, his chest rising and falling with the weight of what had just happened. But the judges weren't finished with him, not even close. Simon raised his hand again, signaling the audience to quiet down. The entire theater obeyed instantly. "Rico, Simon said, leaning forward, I need to understand something. How is this possible? You don't just sound like Elvis, you feel like him. Rico swallowed, unsure how to answer. He looked down, then slowly lifted his gaze. My father was the biggest Elvis fan, he began softly. He used to tell me that Elvis didn't just sing songs, he told stories with his soul. When my father passed away, I promised myself I would keep singing Elvis songs so I could feel close to him. The audience murmured, touched by the sincerity. Even Simon's expression softened. How long have you been singing? Heidi asked gently. Since I was 9, Rico replied. But I never had formal training. I just listened to Elvis every day. His voice felt like home. Howie leaned in. Do you understand what just happened in this room? You made thousands of people feel something they haven't felt in decades. Rico blinked rapidly, his emotions rising. Then Sophia spoke, eyes wide with wonder. But you're not just copying him. When you sing, it's like Elvis lives again, but through you. A hush fell again, not of disbelief this time, but of reverence. Simon stood slowly. Rico, listen to me carefully, he said. I think you have something extraordinarily rare. You're not an impersonator. You're a continuation. The audience erupted once more, this time with cheers, whistles, and chants of Rico. 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 Rico covered his face, overwhelmed. Tonight, a simple man from Cebu had become something larger. He had become a legend reborn. After the emotional exchange with the judges, Simon leaned back into his chair, still visibly stunned. Rico, he said, pointing toward the stage crew, I want you to do one more song. But this time, I want you to give us everything. Show us who you really are. The audience erupted in cheers. Rico nodded nervously, wiping a tear from the corner of his eye. This wasn't just an audition anymore, this was history unfolding. As the lights dimmed and a warm, golden spotlight bathed him in a soft halo, Rico steadied his breath. A gentle guitar intro began to play, the unmistakable opening to Suspicious Minds. And then he transformed. Gone was the timid man who walked on stage. In his place was a confident force, shoulders back, eyes alive, voice booming with a fire that seemed to come from somewhere beyond him. He didn't imitate Elvis's movements, he channeled the energy, the passion, the swagger, but made it uniquely his. His hips moved subtly, rhythmically. His free hand gestured with natural charisma. Every note he hit was flawless, powerful, electrifying. People jumped to their feet instantly, dancing, clapping, cheering. The judges, stunned, looked at each other as if to say, is this really happening? Halfway through the performance, Rico closed his eyes and belted a high note with such raw strength that the arena shook with applause. Even the camera crew was cheering behind their monitors. Simon whispered to Howie, this is a headline act. This is a Vegas act. This is unbelievable. When Rico ended with a dramatic, heartfelt finish, one knee bent, hand over his heart, the entire theater erupted in a standing ovation so loud the stage lights flickered. Rico looked up, breathless. He wasn't just performing anymore. He was rewriting destiny. As the applause thundered around him, Rico stood frozen in the center of the AGT stage, overwhelmed by the tidal wave of emotion crashing over him. He had dreamed his entire life of singing before a crowd like this, but never, not even in his wildest fantasies, did he imagine this reaction. Thousands were on their feet, chanting his name. The judges were visibly shaken, their expressions reflecting awe, disbelief, and admiration. Simon was the first to speak, though his voice was softer than usual, almost reverent. Rico. I've been on this show for many years. I've seen legends, icons, voices that changed the world. But what you did tonight, he paused, pressing a hand to his chest. You brought back a spirit we thought we'd never hear again. Rico covered his mouth, tears threatening to spill. The audience fell silent, waiting. Heidi leaned forward. Your voice isn't just similar to Elvis, it has the same heart. The same warmth. The same soul. You didn't imitate. You revived. Sophia nodded vigorously, adding, you honored your father. You honored Elvis. And you honored every person in this room tonight. Howie looked almost emotional. And you deserve something very special for that. Suddenly, Heidi and Sophia exchanged a glance, one filled with excitement. Sophia placed her hand over the golden buzzer, smiling at Rico with motherly warmth. For your father, she whispered. Heidi placed her hand beside hers. And for Elvis. Then. Boom. The golden buzzer exploded. A cascade of shimmering gold confetti rained down over Rico, swirling around him like a blessing from heaven. Rico fell to his knees, sobbing into his hands as the audience screamed with joy. Simon stood and applauded, rare, genuine, heartfelt. Rico hadn't just passed an audition. He had created a moment the world would never forget.